Hello, my name is Chelsea Sosby. This is my Media Clip final project for special education assessment class. The first question was define least restrictive environment and discuss the concept as it relates to models of delivery for special services. So, least restrictive environment, or LRE, is the principle that governs the placement of students with disability. It is defined as educating students with disabilities in the classroom with children who are not disabled. So keeping them in the classroom as much as possible as it's necessary or allowed. Separate schooling or removal of children with disabilities only will occur when education in the regular classroom does not provide enough support for them. The LRE relates to the models of delivery for special services because it falls in the specific guidelines that the IEP must follow. The IEP must include information of what extent the student will not participate in the general education classroom and other activities that they will not participate in. So the IEP team must have information of the effects of the student's disability and their abilities to participate in the general curriculum. They must also have goals showing involvement and progress in the general curriculum. And if needed, the IEP team can explain any reasons that constitutes the removal of the student from the general education classroom. The second question is, why is the assessment process described as a cycle, and what are the components of the special education assessment process? So, the assessment process is described as a cycle because it follows like a reflective process. It's intentional for designing. You design the assessment for that student, implementing it, and then evaluating, and then revising as needed for the student. The assessment process is a rotation of continuous planning and evaluating. So the designing the IEP and then teaching and reevaluating what goals or changes need to occur. The assessment process needs to be a cycle so that the students are able to grow and have their needs met continuously. The components of special education assessment process include identification and referral, determination of eligibility, program planning, and program implementation and evaluation. So those components of the special education assessment process show that the steps of how the assessment process is a cycle, and because it starts with screenings and then intervention strategies and referral, and then an individualized assessment plan is designed. They also need parental involvement, reporting results, and a discussion about the eligibility. And then after that, the IEP can be designed and parental agreement again is needed. And next, the implementation of the IEP happens with an ongoing progress monitoring. An annual review of the IEP occurs, and reevaluation of eligibility periodically takes place. So the assessment process is constantly being used throughout the steps and continues even after the IEP is implemented. So it's a continuous cycle that way. The third question was describe at least 5 strategies a professional can use to encourage family participation in the special education assessment process. So the first one I put would be seek knowledge from the parents. Make sure that you let parents talk. It's important to make sure that they know they have a voice and that they are able to express what they know and be a part of the process. And also, they know their child more than anybody else. So it's important to listen to what they know about their child. And the second thing I put was be professional, dress appropriately, and be prepared for the IEP meetings. Make sure that you have things like samples of the student's work and other information that you have already prepared, and also give positives whenever possible. It's always good to throw in positives when you're speaking sometimes on difficult things or their abilities. You want to also put in those positives. And even have samples of the student's works that is also positives, have both. The third thing I put is avoid talking in terms that can be unknown to parents. Personally, I know this is a big one because I've been to an IEP meeting before I got into school for my son in preschool for speech, and sometimes they would talk in terms that are hard to understand, or I didn't know what the acronyms stand for. So it's important to avoid saying teacher or educational terms that not everybody knows, like LRE or IAP or other acronyms that are specific about what you're talking about, and instead explain the meanings if needed. And then the next thing is respect parents, which is very important. You need to respect their values and cultures. Also, do not hold them responsible for their child's behavior. Make sure that you are respectful and supportive of the parents. And the last thing I put was be early on keeping parents well informed. It's important that if a child is struggling on something or even failing in a subject, hopefully you would inform them before they're failing, but if they are struggling or getting to where they are failing, make sure that you reach out early and provide support for the student and the parents. Parents want to know what's going on with their child, so make sure that you reach out early to them and inform them on any information they need to know. And again, add positivity as much as possible as well. Like when you're informing parents, I always say give 2 or 3 positives for each negative. So anything that's going on, make sure that you are giving positives that's going on in the classroom as well with their student. And the last question was compare and contrast 3 types of derived scores: percentile ranks, standard scores, and Stenines. Tell how these scores are related to one another and to the normal distribution, and then a sketch may be included. The percentile ranks for a raw score shows the percentage of those within the norm group who achieve that raw score or lower. So they're referring to a percentage of persons. So the percentage that is correct refers to the percentage of test items. So if a student is testing and only answers 50% of the items on the test, but they get them all correct, then they would still rank in the 99th percentile for their age group. Even though they didn't complete all of the items, the number they got correct is what the percentage goes on, or percentile goes on. This ranks their relative position in the norm group. And then standard scores transform raw scores into a new scale that has a set mean and a standard deviation. This means standard scores are helpful when comparing two different measures for the performance of the same individual. And then distributions can be made by using any mean or standard deviation. Then Sinai's distribution is divided up into 9 segments, and instead of it being a specific score, it makes the data provided by them a little less precise. These are all related to one another in the normal distribution because their purpose is to compare a student's performance to the norm group. They all give similar to the same information based on the mean and standard deviation of the normal distribution. And if a test only offers age or grade equivalents that are being used, then either percentile ranks or standard scores or both should also be used with those tests as well. So that's another way that they relate to one another. And that is all. Thank you.